Welcome to another episode of the Meal Prep Monday podcast. I'm your host, Allison Schaff, and today I'm talking about journaling. Before I get into the content, a reminder that if you have not tried out our time-saving meal prep meal plans, you can head to prepdish.com/mpm and try us out for 2 weeks for free. You will get an easy-to-use grocery list where you can just jump online, order your groceries, and from there, we do all of the heavy lifting. So we tell you exactly what to prep. And at dinner time, we make it really easy for you to get healthy, tasty meals that your whole family will love. So if you've not given us a try, head to prepdish.com/mpm. Or hey, even if you've given us a try in the past, maybe years ago, you tried out a free trial, but it's been a few years and you're thinking this might be the time. I always say there's different seasons for, how you handle meals in your life. I know right now I'm relying very heavily on our super fast plans, whereas in the past I did, I did our gluten-free or paleo plans. So it kind of really depends where you're at and what's working for you right now. But if you're thinking you could use a little help in the mealtime department, then I would encourage you to just give us a try. Again, it's 2 weeks for free, so no strings attached, and see if it works for you. Okay, so I'm excited for today's episode. Right now, I've decided it's just going to be it's going to be 2 parts. I do think there's potential for it to be more parts, but I'm going to start with these 2, and then, I don't know, maybe in a few months, I'll end up adding on a few more to this series. This is a series that's inspired by the book, The Artist Way. It's a book that's been on my radar for several years now. I have a few different friends that have done it, and I've heard of people doing it. And I actually remember specifically that I was on a trip to Guatemala before, I guess Ivan was like 1. So it would have been like 3.5 years ago. And I remember one of the girls on the trip showed me and told me all about it. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. And it's a workbook, I guess you could say. So when you do it, you kind of commit to doing 12 weeks and you do it every morning. And so I think it's just kind of taken a few years where I felt like I could, wake up in the morning and do this straight away. So the author is Julia Cameron. And again, I'm sure some of you have heard of this because it is pretty well known and has been out there for several years. And the concept is so one of the concepts is morning pages. So it's that you wake up and you journal 3 pages as soon as you wake up. And then from there, the workbook is 12 weeks of each week having different questions that you journal about. It's very introspective. And also you are doing this artist date every week. And it's really just helping you to tap into your creativity and your creative self. And I have a little over a month into this. And the part that I wanted to talk about on today's episode is just journaling and the importance for journaling. And next week, I'm going to get more into kind of distractions and being more present. And I know that with this podcast, if you've listened, I've been doing this for a few years now. Yes, it's on meal prep and meal planning, and I go on tangents, and sometimes I attempt to make it come back to meal prep and meal planning, but other times I'm just people who've been listening for a long time know that I'm going to go on tangents and talk on things that I think y'all might be interested in, whether or not it's very directly related to meal planning and meal prep. But I do think, and when I'm looking at this topic and looking at this program that I'm doing, this workbook, I think a lot of what I am attempting to do with Prep Dish is to help all of you just have more presence in your life, be more present with your family. How do you enter mealtime? I this is the big conundrum of I get it. I have 2 little ones, and when you get to dinner time, it's so easy for it to be oh my gosh, let me do this. And the kids are even last night, Ivan was I'm hungry. I can't wait. And it was dinner was going to be ready at the same time it is every single night. It's not I was running behind or anything, but some nights he's just hungrier, much hungrier, before. And I'm it was 4 minutes away from being done, but it was a big crisis, So, but how do you kind of create these meal times where it is a little more like, and yes, we had like that moment of like, it was very like high energy and hectic, but then we sat down and we had a nice, like enjoyable dinner. And, you know, that term is said loosely, like a nice, enjoyable dinner, like looks differently now with a 2 and 4 year old than it did before kids. But, you know, if you have little, you understand. So, but how do you kind of create this life where you can sit down and enjoy meals? And I think enjoying meals is kind of like this metaphor for like really like enjoying your life on a deeper level, because I think if you can give yourself the time to sit down and enjoy your food, that's just like kind of this like overall, you know, bigger picture enjoyment of life, and not just like rushing through. And that's where I think meal planning and meal prep really steps in to help of like, hey, here's how you can take a step back and not always be just like rushing, but like actually have this be a time of day that is this like sacred family time. Like I feel like that's what mealtime can be and should be. And I would like it to be, and I would like it to be for all of you, is like this time. And so where does journaling come into there? So journaling, I, have journaled off and on my whole life. Like I remember having diaries, in grade school and high school. But, this idea of like waking up and journaling 3 pages every day before you start your day, the way that, I didn't like write down any quotes, but the way that Julia Cameron describes it is sort of like, you've got a fogged up window, like you're walking through life and your windshield's kind of fogged. And so by getting all of that, like gunk off the windshield first thing in the morning, it kind of just allows you to not have this like head that's spinning with all these things. And when I'm journaling, it's not like, oh, these great, like, epiphanies or something. And maybe sometimes it is like, oh, wow, I did get an aha. But sometimes it's just like, talking about the day or talking about the weather, or like, oh, like, 7 woke me up again last night, or, whatever it is. It's just sometimes the same things that you would say if you were just kind of rambling, but it gets it off your chest so that then you're not worried about all those little details. And then it's like, you can kind of open up to the bigger picture. And journaling has also been one of those things, I've shared a little bit on here that I had a lot of struggles with fertility and recurring miscarriages. And so like when I go through hard times, I find that it's really good for me to kind of write down my thoughts and let all of that out through journaling. I've been through practices where I've done intense like 3-day journaling and then had to burn everything, which is a really cool experience. So I'm really enjoying this like habit of waking up every morning and journaling for 3 pages. And I guess for today's episode, it's, I would like to kind of challenge you of like, is journaling something that you've done in the past? Is it something you would want to do in the future? Like, is there a time in your day where you could set aside time to do that? And, even like, gosh, like back in the day, I used to do the getting things done, and he would talk about the brain dump. And like, whenever I'm overwhelmed, like, I feel like I sit down at my desk and just kind of brain dump everything. It's like, you've got to kind of get it out, and on pen and paper is a good way, at least for me personally, to kind of get things out. So with this episode, I guess it's an encouragement. If journaling is something that you've enjoyed in the past and you're not doing as much anymore, I would give a little challenge out there to see if there's a place in your life where you could fit it back in. If you're feeling inspired to check out Julia Cameron's work, I encourage you to do that. I know she's done podcast interviews on different, on other podcasts, so you could like listen to some of her interviews as well. And yes, she talks about, the creative and the artist, and maybe these are terms that you do resonate with and relate to, but maybe they're not. And I would say, don't be intimidated if not, because when she says that, I mean, I believe, and I think she would say that she believes like every one of us has kind of like a quote unquote artist or creative within, and that can mean a lot of different things and look a lot of different ways. And in the book, she's not like, oh, I'm specifically talking to, writers or, dancers or, whatever the creative outlet might be. So anyway, this is what I'm loving right now. And I also want to kind of set the stage, because I know next week I'm going to talk a little bit more about one of the exercises from that book, or an exercise that we did in our family a few weeks ago. And I have a feeling that I'm going to talk about a few of the other exercises and learnings that I have that are coming through from doing that workbook and going through this program. So, more to come. I don't even know what the more to come is, but there probably will be more to come. So that, though, is all that I have for today's episode. If you enjoyed the episode and have not left a rating and review, I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. That just helps other people to find this podcast. And then a reminder that if you are wanting to try out the Prep Dish meal plans, we do have that 2-week free trial set up at prepdish.com/mpm. And that's all I have. So I will be back again next Monday with another episode and continuing on a little bit about some of my learnings from this Artist Way program.